Hi, I'm Aaron with the Chamber for a Greater Chapel Hill Carborough, and we're here with the senior leadership team from Mako. Mako is a clinical laboratory that is leading in North Carolina and throughout the Southeast in testing, particularly around COVID, since the COVID pandemic has begun. We have with us Josh Arant. He is the Chief Operating Officer and one of the founders of the organization, and also Fain. She is a sales director with the organization. Both have been with them since the very beginning. The organization is pretty incredible. 500 employees now, supporting physician offices and hospitals throughout the Southeast. But again, since the crisis, have really pivoted to providing the COVID testing response that is needed now, with the ability to do 25,000 viral tests a day and 20,000 antibody tests each day. But today we want to talk with them and sort of demystify this testing. What is it? How can folks use it? So Josh, can you describe to us what are the different tests?
Yes, thank you, Aaron, for that, and thank you all for joining us today. So we offer two different types of tests for COVID-19. The first test is, like you stated, the viral test. So that is run on PCR instrumentation, and it very simply tells you, do you have COVID-19 or do you don't have COVID-19? The second test is the antibody test. So that lets you know, have you been exposed to COVID-19, and is your body building antibodies in response to that exposure? So that is still a yes or no answer. Do you have the antibodies or do you not have the antibodies? So those are the two types of tests that we offer.
Are there two kinds of antibodies in that? One, I understand, that reacts at the beginning, that you're ramping up, and the other one that might tell you that you possibly have some immunoresistant antibodies?
There are two antibodies within the test, but our test only tests for one right now. We're waiting on instrument manufacturers to come out with that. So the test that Mako offers is the IgG test, which allows to show you exposure toward the end further out. So 14 days out from that exposure event, the antibodies will begin to show up and the test will begin to become positive if you actually have been exposed.
And that's the one, as I understand it, to help let me know that I have now built up some antibody response and may have the ability to resist it if I become exposed again. Talk to me a little bit about where you get one of these tests. Can you, how do I get tested?
So we've tried to make it very, very simple for both employers, physician offices, and people in general. So Mako has a dedicated COVID response team. Internally, we've kind of created a command center. And so if you're an employer or you're a state or local government, you can simply call or email our COVID response team, and we'll actually deploy people on site to help perform those collections at your business or local area. So we provide the collection kits, the staff for collection, and the logistics to get it back to our laboratory for processing.
So how big does an employer need to be in order to request that? Or should employers band together and work together to have you come in?
Yeah, ideally it is if we have bigger groups, but making sure that we're properly socially distanced, and we set up tents and drive-through areas to keep everything outside if possible. So our number has been around 50 individuals at once, but we've done it lower than that. I think Fain and her team went out and did 15 yesterday, an employer of 15. So, you know, for us, it's about how can we get everybody back to where potentially as close as we once were as possible, and do that in a responsible manner. So, you know, we're just trying to serve. That's all we're trying to do at this time.
I appreciate that. And I know that tests are getting more accurate. Can you tell us a little bit about the accuracy?
Sure, yeah. So the accuracy on the PCR test, our limit of detection is, this is very scientific, but it just tells you how low it is 250 copy number genomes per 400 microliters, right? So basically less than 1 per 1 ratio. So the limit of detection is very low. So if you have the virus and we get a solid collection, we will detect that virus. With the antibody test, it really depends upon how far you out from the exposure. So the further out you are, so that 14-day mark, the antibody test can be very accurate. The closer you are to that date, to the exposure, the inaccuracies arise.
And I know that from frustrating for some folks. They hope that the very next day that they would know whether they have it, but just like the cold or flu or other things, the day you bumped into the person with it isn't the day you test positive. There needs to be a period of time for it to develop in your system. Is that right?
That's our understanding at this point, that incubation period, but it does happen relatively quickly though.
And when the tests are they wrong positive or are they generally wrong negative?
It's very difficult to say whether one is wrong or positive or false negative because you're really relying upon the patient itself to let you know that it was a false positive or false negative because it would have to follow up. It'd have to require a follow-up test. So, the false and positives and false negatives, that component of it is very low for us. We put a ton of quality control measures in place to make sure that does not happen. Multiple times of testing if we identify there's ever any issue.
I appreciate that. That helps build confidence. Do you need a doctor to order this for you? Does it need a physician or provider to request the test?
Yeah, so right now, Mako does require an MD, a nurse practitioner, physician assistant, and now a pharmacist can order the test. However, there have been insurance companies that are expanding access to the tests by not requiring a physician or medical provider order. So what I would suggest, if you're a business and you want to test your team, call your insurance provider and ask them, do I need a medical provider order for these tests? And explain the reason for the test, because we've seen some insurance companies say, no, you don't need a medical provider order right now in this emergency.
And how long does it take for the results to come back? Maybe first for the molecular test and then second for the antibody test?
Yeah, so for the molecular test, 24 to 48 hours. And then we report that result to an electronic web portal. And we also have a patient portal now that each individual person can have the results on their smartphone or on the web. For the antibody test, it's less than 24 hours. So it's a very quick blood test.
And quick, I know some people have some anxiety about getting tested. We actually describe them. What we call a molecular test is a swab, correct? And where do you, up the nose?
That's correct. So there's multiple, the CDC has allowed for multiple different collection types today. The most traditional being the nasopharyngeal, which is the one that goes all the way up into your nasal cavity, probably the most uncomfortable. The next two are, they call a mid-nasal collection, which is a little bit less invasive. And then they also allowed for interior nails, so right there, interior nares, so right there at the nostril. And then also for a throat collection.
And then the antibody test, correct, is a blood test. They prick your finger?
The antibody test for us right now is a traditional blood draw. So it's not with a finger prick yet. A lot of the finger prick tests are the rapid test, but Mako's is a laboratory test that we bring back to the lab. So it's your traditional blood draw.
And how much do these tests cost?
So Medicare right now is stated the PCR molecular test is $100. The antibody test is $42. So Mako does work with employers individually for individual pricing.
And then, but likely insurance covers this or currently no?
Most insurances do cover this. In fact, most, if not all insurances do cover it. However, we have seen a narrowing of some of the coverages lately for screening that are maybe for asymptomatic screening with an employer basis. So again, I recommend that if you're an employer who wants this test and wants to build insurance for the test, reach out to your insurance company to make sure that this specific event that you're testing for is covered.
So I want a reminder out there for folks in retail, restaurant, hospitality. You are going to be engaging with lots of customers. And I know that there's been some question about how and when to get tested. Remind you, if someone does test positive in your organization, that you are, that the rest of the employees will need to get tested, that we're in close proximity for a long period of time. The CDC also is recommending that individuals that have been participating in marching or protests or large gatherings, that they be tested within 3 to 5 days of, for that potential exposure. It is no longer like it was months ago, which was that we were rationing these and they were difficult to find. They're now readily available, and we should encourage everybody who has any concern to get tested and then to work with Mako to figure out a protocol for returning to work, how to get tested, how to repeat testing to give you confidence of your safe workplace. Fain, are you the right person for them to contact if they're interested in organizing a test for themselves or for their company?
Yeah, absolutely. They're more than welcome to contact me directly. But we also have a great customer service team at Mako, and they can look us up on the web and call us directly. And then we have a team there that can make sure that they get somebody directly to help them and get them set up as quickly as possible.
Perfect. Any final advice that you have for employers or employees in this COVID economy?
I would say one thing is that we're all in this together, and let's operate like that. You know, lean on the Makos, the hospitals, the other medical providers that are in this every day. Don't feel like you have to accomplish this on your own, because we can get through this together much quicker than we can individually. So I would just say don't be hesitant to reach out. Even if you don't want to do business with us, we're here to help and serve as much as possible.
Well, we are grateful for your partnership, for the service that you're providing to our community, both to the major employers who are welcome to contact you for major testing protocols for their employees, the health departments throughout our region who are buying some of their key supplies and tests from you all, but also to individuals. You guys have done a wonderful job, a great tradition and history of service, and we're grateful for our partnership with you all. Thank you all for joining us for this quick conversation on COVID testing, and we look forward to seeing you soon.